Write down my home email, which is the Comcast email, and eventually I'll get it to you. I owe some people from last year, but it was still kind of a work in progress, and I think I kind of finished it off this year. It's a very large PowerPoint. It's about 900 slides, which we're not going to go through all today. The good thing is there's no real start or finish, so we'll just get through as many drills as we can. Go ahead, Sam.
All right, hey guys, my name is Raul Angulo. I'm with UNC Charlotte in the Fire Protection Program. I'll be your class monitor for this session. First, I need to let you know that this building is monitored by a fire protection system, and if it is activated, we will evacuate. The exits are located here and here. The restrooms are located in the hallways and are clearly marked. I'm not exactly sure what the closest one to this classroom is, but it's fairly obvious. We have class evaluations, which if you were unable to pick one up on your way in, I have in the back corner. Please fill them out. This information is very important for us. And if you leave early, please complete the evaluation form and then give it to me on your way out. If you missed getting scanned for this class, please go to the volunteer room, number 203, and they will scan you in for it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sam. So I worked pretty hard on this presentation, so my request from you is that you would do an evaluation on this so that if the evaluations are favorable, they'll ask me to come back and do it one more time. So we'll go ahead and get started. Well, this is the last class of the conference, and after this it's all vendors and shows. So thanks for taking time out of your day. They're saving the best for last, I guess, I hope. So anyway, my name is Raul Angulo. I'm a captain with Seattle Fire. I'm captain of Ladder 6. Been with Seattle 32 years. I got 35 years on the job. I'm almost on my way out. I always like to ask, how many career paid do we have in here? Okay, hands down. How many volunteers? Okay, good. And combination? Okay. How many chief officers do we have? Training officers? Okay. Captains or lieutenants? And firefighters? Okay, very good. Thank you. So this is drills you're not going to find in the book. If you were reading fire engineering this month, Skip Coleman's session starts with one of the questions people ask him most often, and we need some ideas for the company drill. So there it is. Why do you think people dread drilling? Anybody? It's work. It shows maybe that you're incompetent, boring. It's not challenging. Anything else? Repetitive. We kind of know that already. Yeah. A lot of times guys are afraid of looking stupid. They're going to expose their weaknesses. Nobody likes to look weak in front of their peers. They don't like getting teased. That's always fair game in the firehouse. They're afraid of looking bad in front of the chief or some of the seniors. Or sometimes it's an opportunity for the officers to show the firefighters how smart they are and how dumb the firefighter is. Or they're just plain lazy. Those are a lot of the reasons. Hazing is kind of going by the wayside. If you've been following, there's been some pretty bad incidents, LA City for one, but the days of hazing are kind of over. I mean, you can still do it, it's part of the culture, but don't use your drills as a hazing opportunity because that casts a negative on training, right? Same thing with discipline. You don't want to train as a form of punishment because that's a negative, and then those are all barriers of being a successful company officer for training. And also, with women in the fire service, you have to be really careful that you don't step on a landmine. If you set the females up for ridicule or embarrassment, it can backfire on you, and you can end up in some real legal jams. So training is to be taken seriously, and it's not a game. It could be fun, but it's not a game. But the time to correct the errors during the drill. because it's impossible to correct those actions during the fire scene. And fewer errors will occur if you practice and you practice right. Practice only makes for perfection when that which is practiced is correct. Just because you do something over and over and it's wrong doesn't mean it becomes right because it's repetitive. If you practice it wrong, you'll learn it wrong. And then I always like to say, train like your life depends on it because it does. And that's the motto of the Los Angeles City Fire Department. But when you develop your drills for the company, they need to be meaningful. You want to seize those opportunities to get your guys to say, we need to be good at what we do. You want to follow your SOPs, follow your department training guidelines. They're guides, but try and stay within those parameters. Make sure you follow your safety rules and regulations. Don't get anybody hurt or killed training. And follow the union rules if you have union rules. If it's a holiday routine, don't have a drill when they're scheduled to be off because it just complicates your life. Base your drills on case studies. You can get those from the NIOSH reports, National Fire Academy, USFA, the close calls, firefighterclosecalls.com. There's a lot of websites that have a lot of video. And look at those situations and then develop a training session around that. What would we do if we had this incident in our department? Because if you come up with these creative drills based on case studies or actual incident, it gives them legitimacy and credibility. You want to make them fun, challenging, make them safe, right? If you practice during the day, try it at night. I call them night ops. They always laugh. But we do a lot of our stuff at night. I watch the guys watch the military channel. They'll watch the SEALs, the Navy SEALs, and they'll watch these military special elite teams practice stuff over and over and over. And firefighters really like to do that. The harder they are, the more they brag. Everybody bitches and nobody complains. If they do complain, wow, do we have to wear full bunkers? Do we have to wear our SCBA? I always tell them, well, you can transfer to Fire Prevention Bureau because you don't have to do it there. And just give them an answer like that. You don't have to engage them. Just tell them, if you don't like it, transfer out. So, don't be afraid to think outside the box. Use your head, use your tools. We've got to be creative. But here's the bottom line. What are you going to do? Whatever situation you have tonight, it's your call as a company officer. You're not going to do it Bob's way. You're not going to do it the chief's way. You're not going to do it Captain Raul's way. The decision you make is your decision. You have to make a decision. So whatever you decide, that's what's going down tonight. There's your crew. They're waiting for you. And above all, be safe. Okay, so these are drills you're not going to find in the book. A lot of these aren't secret. They're things you know about. It's just a way of packaging and making the job fun, challenging for firefighters, for drivers, for everybody. I kind of mixed it up. They're not just engine, they're not just truck. And we'll start with just some little ones and we'll work our way up. But apparatus checks in the morning. If you have a reserve apparatus and you want to make a drill out of it, try loosening the tips of the nozzles. A lot of firefighters will come, they'll just see the hose load, it's fine, they don't even touch it. And these things can come loose, they can become loosened during traffic, but pull a gasket out. I'm talking about the reserve rigs. And kind of set it up and see if they're actually really checking their equipment. The monitor tips are usually stacked, but those can come loose. If it's your first line rig, what I've done sometimes is I'll put little post-em stickies and see if they find them. Did you check me? Am I tight today? Or do I have my complete inventory? Make sure the firefighters go up on the aerial. Are they checking the tip of the aerial? Is that in the rescue mode? Or is it in the master stream mode? Are they checking how many gallons are really in there? Pull 1 gallon out and see if they come to you and say, hey, we're missing 1 5-gallon can of foam for the inventory. But a lot of this stuff gets missed. And so if you make it a challenging drill, see what you can catch. For thoroughness, you can even make it a competition. It's a way of getting guys to handle the equipment on a daily basis, because stuff does get missed. Certain foam ejectors can be assembled incorrectly. Some of the inventories on the O2 kits are incomplete. They just see that they're there. And firefighters, they're coming to work, they're getting their coffee, they start chatting, and then they become complacent in some of the things that are real important for the next alarm. Is the O2 up? In staging these pictures, we actually found that the 2.5-gallon pump can was below the green. So they're like that, but they missed that during the check. We found it for the pictures, so they were a little embarrassed there. Are the drains for the pumps, are they pushed in? Little things like that. Include in part of your training in the drilling if they're mopping their floors. Why is this important to do? It's not just because we're just... Exactly, that's where you're going to see if the apparatus is leaking any fluid. And the only way you're going to do that if you start off with a clean floor. So this can all be part of a comprehensive drill just for apparatus. This is another one that we do, again, is challenging, especially with the young firefighters. Bring them here. This is their office. This is their toolbox. And say, Firefighter Reyes, I want you to name everything in this compartment. And see how many things they can name. The first time, they'll probably get a few wrong. But you'll see how the competition starts developing. And he's going, oh, I forgot the bag with the C-collars. So, make it fun, but it's just using everyday things and turning it more into a competition so that they're taking their job seriously in just checks. A lot of times, people will assemble the chainsaw, and the chain will be too tight on the bar. Firefighters will open up the compartment, and they'll say, yeah, the chainsaw's there, or they might check for fuel, but they don't check for tightness. So you can tighten it or loosen it. See if they catch it. Here's a drill I do for some of my guys. Sometimes I'll have two chainsaws, and I'll set them side by side. I will purposely put the chain on backwards on one of them. And I'll say, what's wrong with this saw? Or are these saws okay? And if you look at this carefully, can you tell me if this chain is on backwards or forwards? Is that correct or incorrect? That one's correct. How about this one? It's backwards? It is backwards. You can see the carbide tips. The chain goes in this direction. Carbide tip is facing that way. So it's put on backwards. How many people have found their saws like that? 1, 2, look at this, hands up. It's happened in my department. And that's how I came up with it. So, is that correct or incorrect? Incorrect. How about now? That's correct. And backwards. They'll be ready for you next time. And then they're going to do it on A shift, and B shift will test C shift, and there it goes. Do you know your equipment so well that you can draw it? I have them draw the pump panel, the drivers. This is their workstation. This is the control board. Everything revolves around this. Do they know it so well that they can draw it? Let's have a drawing competition. Can the truckman draw the load indicator on the aerial? It's an important indicator there. Do they know it so well that they have that memorized? How detailed can your drivers get on the pump panel? I've had my guys go blindfolded from left to right and tell me which lever is which gauge is which port does it open. And it turns into a competition, and it's pretty fun. And then they start comparing their drawings. They're drawing the side panel here. The SCBA and our emergency rescue breathing, our regulator, these are key things for survival. Do your firefighters know them so well that they can manipulate these pieces of equipment that are vital to their survival? Can they manipulate them blindfolded, in the dark? If they know it so well, they can draw it. And you'll end up with drawings like this. This one's pretty detailed. And you just hand out a piece of paper. You can do it right after breakfast or after roll call and say, hey, draw me the regulator. Draw me the bottom end of the SCBA bottle where you have another quick connect for emergency escape. Portable radio drills. Here's another drill. Most people have a radio that looks like that. We have to manipulate these in the dark. Seattle has had a couple of, one fatality for sure where a firefighter was on the wrong channel. So do you know your buttons so well that you can click them just by feel and know if you're on channel 1, 2, 3, 4? Practice that with your guys. Can they draw it? Do they know their radio so well that they can draw it? Do they know where the emergency button is? They should know it so well they can draw the top of their radio. So these are all drawings from my crews. When we do radio checks in the morning, most firefighters will grab the portable me to portable you. Okay, everything good, and they call it good. How many people check their radios like that? Okay. One brave soul. A lot of people do. You don't have to do it every day, but try doing it like this. Because this is when you're going to need to operate your radio. With full gear, with gloves. Can they manipulate the buttons with gloves on? This is an extremely difficult thing to do. And if you can't, then practice covering up. Because if you're in a mayday situation where you're trapped and you have to call for help, and you're in a hot, smoky environment, if you take your gloves off, you're going to burn your hands. But you got to manipulate your radio if you can with your gloves. So you're going to have to protect your hand somehow. You need to practice those little simple evolutions. I'm having them use the hand here so you can see, but our radios have a flexible antenna. But you can bend the antenna, that's the tip of the antenna, and it'll land right on the emergency button. Because it's almost impossible to press that emergency button with a gloved hand. So I teach my guys to use their radio antenna to activate the emergency button. Just a little trick. And then they try it with gloves on. And here they're trying to manipulate the channel. I'll go, okay, go to channel 7. They'll start with 1, click, 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 click. They'll count to 7, and the readout will come out on the radio, and then we check it. They'll do it blindfolded or just with their eyes closed. Go to channel 16, go to 15. Just get them to manipulate the knobs on the radio. But they should be able to do this blindfolded. Now, I went around the country and started taking pictures of how people carry their radio mics. This guy didn't know why I was taking his picture. I sent him a picture later, but this is out of Massachusetts, and he carries his radio right here. I didn't ask him because I didn't want to embarrass the guy, but how do you hear when your microphone's down here? I can't hear. How do you hear abandon the building or if someone's trying to call you? Why did he put his radio mic there? Anybody? Because why? That's where the strap is. Yeah. That's where the little radio strap is. So he figures, okay, well, that's where it goes. Here's some guys from Boston. They have a different type of radio, and they all carry it the same way. Here's a guy from Truck 15. His radio's right there. Here's a guy from Engine 4 or Ladder 4, I forget. But they just clip it onto the side like that. That's how they do it. Nothing wrong with it. This guy's a little bit different. He has it run through a carabiner, and that's good. Because here's what happens. When you fall through a floor, or even just down the stairs, it's a pretty traumatic event for your body. This is one of the classes I teach for the Mayday. They're blindfolded. They have to call Mayday and the Mayday parameters. So these guys go, it's a teeter-totter type flooring, and look at how these guys land. This guy loses his mic. He's looking everywhere for it. He goes right for it where he knows it's at. But it was just clipped in. He can't find it. So this is a drill, but what happens if it's hot? What happens if there's fire? He's pulling his regulator hose, and he's got it all which way, and he's in a real life situation. This would cause a panic, but we don't train our firefighters something simple on make sure your mic is secure. That's your lifeline to call for help. But how many people do a drill like this? Anybody drill? One, good. There's a couple, but just simple stuff. But when you tie it to line of duty deaths, or you tie it to close call situations, all of a sudden this becomes an important drill. This guy's pretty squared away. Now, I don't work for Gearkeeper. They use this because it was good publicity for them. I don't get paid by them, but it is the best system I've found out there. And I give them away. I give them to my people. It's a retractable tether cord, and it goes right there. And if you don't want to lose anything, attach it to a Gearkeeper. It's the best $20 investment that you'll ever make. If you don't want to lose your flashlight, attach it to a Gearkeeper. They have some heavy-duty models for heavier equipment like the thermal imager. But this allows you to use it and just let it go and it retracts. Now, how many firefighters carry their radio under their bunking coat like this with the strap? There's a few. If it works for you, great. My only question is, again, because I had a line of duty death in Seattle that was related to a firefighter being on the wrong channel. When you have your coat buckled up and maybe you're wearing a ladder belt with an axe like our truck guys do, and then you have your SDBA strap on top of that, and you're working, how do you know when you switched channels? How do you know when you went from 1 to 2? The only way you're going to know is when all of a sudden it's kind of quiet, or you're hearing radio traffic on other people's microphone, but it's not coming on yours. You're on the wrong channel. And how do you change that? How do you fire your emergency button when it's under your coat like that? I don't know. But there's just questions that I ask. I don't think it's the best way, but I think a lot of people do it because maybe they were taught and they're comfortable with it. If you can do all those things and it's in that position, then it's fine. Yes, sir.
We have it set up in my second department where you alter the channel.
Yes.
Voice over and identify fire country, fire ground 1, fire dispatch, EMS 1. You are aware on both sides, the base radio and the mic radio, where there has to change the channel.
Okay, not all radios can do that. But when I show you some other drills, you might want to think twice about how you use this position here if this is how you do it. And you'll see why in a bit. I'm not telling you have to change. I'm just saying look at some of the things that can happen. Some firefighters carry it here. They're buckling up their coat and then the microphone comes out of the collar. So, are we still good? Okay. How many people run their cord along the back of their neck like that? There's a few. We have case studies where firefighters have been caught in a flashover. And when you're in a flashover, what's your position of safety? If you're crawling, what are you going to do? Face down or face up? Face down. So where is the most exposed part of your body? The back. And the case studies have shown that this will burn through if it's exposed. You'll lose your radio mic. So this one has a cover here. It's not designed for the radio, but if you do it like that, cover it. I like having my cord in front because if I'm going to be down on my face, it covers my radio, it protects my radio. If I'm in a situation where I need help, I'm probably going to be face down because I want to use my elbows to create a safe box. And I want my radio communication right there. I don't want anything exposed to the back. So just some things to think about. This is the fence drill. There's a variety of fence drills that I use. I usually blindfold my guys. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on if it's a challenge or if I'm trying to teach them something. Obviously, I'm not going to blindfold them. Here, this firefighter is following a lead line, and you can get any of these fences at a construction site, and it's going to simulate a collapse. And so you lay it on them. Be careful because it does hurt when you put a lot of pressure on it. But this will pin you down right now. If you've never been under a fence like that, give it a shot. You cannot move. You cannot move. So this firefighter's hands are locked in that position. How is he going to get to his radio? How are you going to call for Mayday? And then we have a firefighter lay on him just to give him a sensation of weight. Because when a wall falls on you, or a roof, or any of the structural members of the roof, it's a tremendous amount of weight. And if you're not prepared for that, you can get caught in a position where you can't breathe. When somebody trips, right, they trip, what's our natural reaction to do with our hands? Put them out in front of us to catch us. But do we train our firefighters when they fall to do that? To keep their hands in front, not so much to prevent us from falling, because you're falling, you're not going to stop, but to create that box, the elbow, so that you can breathe. We just had a fire, and you'll see a picture of the building here. I actually have a picture of this building before it burned down, which is kind of unusual. But this wall fell on a firefighter, and a good friend of mine, senior guy, 35 years on the job. And I wanted to ask him if he was able to reach his radio to call for Mayday. He says, Cap, I wasn't thinking of Mayday or Lunar or any of that stuff. All I wanted to do was breathe. I could not breathe. He got caught, and he just went into a panic because he couldn't breathe. The weight of that wall was so tremendous. So we don't train our firefighters to prepare for those type of situations. But this kind of gives them a sensation of how difficult it is to breathe when you're pinned by a fence and then you got some weight on them. After they get the sensation, get up and let them operate. But have them try and operate and call for Mayday using their microphone. If they're right-handed, how many people practice to activate their pass device or key their mic with their left hand? Have you ever done that drill? It's hard to do. It seems simple until you're in this situation. So then I teach them how to use their right hand and use their left hand. Now, if they can't reach their microphone, and guys will spend time pulling their helmets, their chin straps, everywhere looking for that. The secret is all you have to do is teach them to put their hand right over the pocket and key the side of the radio. It'll work. You can talk in that position without the portable microphone. How many people knew that? A few hands. But practice with your radio. That's a life-saving skill right there. It's a big deal, but it's just a simple drill. But if your firefighters don't know that, they may not be able to do it when they need it. So teach them that skill. And then I teach them how to use their other hand. Right hand, left hand. Your dominant hand, your other hand. And make that part of your drills. Calling the Mayday. When we call for Mayday, do you use Lunar? You don't have to, but I want to show you why Lunar is very important. If you look at this passport accountability board, here's floor 2, floor 3 on the roof. You got rescue 1. They're doing search and rescue on floor 2. Engine 1 is doing fire attack on floor 3, and ladder 1 is on the roof. If they have a Mayday and they're trained to do Lunar, even if you get just one component, let's just say I'm on engine 1 and that's all they get out because something happened. Then you can track engine 1 to floor 3. You do a par, whoever doesn't answer, through the process of elimination, you can figure it out. If they just give their assignment, Mayday, 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 I was doing search and rescue, just with their assignment, okay, who was doing search and rescue? Somebody from Rescue 1, they're on floor 2. So you can track the Lunar complements the accountability system. So when you're doing your Mayday training, make sure that they include these components because it's tied to the accountability system. Just little teaching points when you're doing your drills. You can also use plastic just to give the sense of claustrophobia or enclosure instead of a fence. If you don't have a fence, you can use some heavy-duty plastic. It still confines the firefighter and gives them a sensation of feeling entrapped. So just another little tip. Again, we've all done these drills where they're entangled and they have to call for the Mayday, but make sure that you include the Lunar component because it's tied to the accountability system. The accountability system is always in the top 5 of reasons of line of duty death. So all these things are interconnected. As a company officer, you need to connect the dots so the firefighters know that it's a critical component of the drill. It's not just cutting the wires and using your clippers. This is another drill. They use a piece of heavy-duty plywood. It's hinged right here. Same sensation. You slam it down, gives them a sense that something has fallen on them. It could confine them. And these are real simple to build. That guy's pinned, believe it or not. Make him do the Mayday, and then you continue on. They have to include the Lunar component. That's just showing you that prop. But again, here's another firefighter. Look at how they fall, just in a simple boom. It's only a couple of feet, but it's knocking them over. If they go downstairs like this and their radio microphone is not properly attached, they're going to lose that radio. And in fact, in some of these drills, because we do it numerous times, we actually pull their radio out, or if they have it secured, we're going to set it up when they're blindfolded, so that we can create the situation if it doesn't happen accidentally. It happens enough accidentally, but firefighters need to know that all they have to do is quickly just go to their pocket and key the side of the radio, and they can communicate and call for help. That's not a very large fall. And if you're the officer, make sure that you do what your guys do. Once you make them do it, then you do it as well. It's always a good thing. Is that a Mayday situation? Look at this guy, same thing. All right. So these are just drills. This is the other fence. You can use a open chain link fence like this, and this works well. It's not as heavy, and you can really slam them down. Now, here's another part of this drill. If you're pinned, if you notice his hands are in front, and we did this on purpose because unless you get trapped with your hands in front, how do you activate your pass device if you can't reach it? What's that? Don't move. Don't move. For how long? 30 seconds. I just learned that a couple of years ago. Is it because I didn't know it? No. How come I figured it out? Because I had never been in that position before. Once I was trapped, I was fighting. I couldn't get. I figured I could bust that through that fence. I'll get through this fence. Every time I kept trying to wrestle with the fence, I kept resetting the pass device. Right? So teach your firefighters, because a lot of firefighters will try and fight this. Teach them to stay still for 30 seconds. Once the pass device is activated, then let them fight all they want. But you need to create these situations so that they'll be able to experience these things. Vertical ventilation support. We do a lot of rooftop ventilation. This one's focusing on the second person here. All right? Do you teach the second support person on how you can support the sawyer? Just some different positions. Here he has his hand on the belt. Here his hand is on the SCBA bottle. Here he's leaning up right against him. He's using his body. Here he's using the hook as a footrest for the firefighter who's the sawyer so that he can lean against the hook. So focus on this guy as part of your drills. It's just a different component of the ladder drill. Nothing too complicated, but a lot of instructors forget the second guy. If you get any house that is going to be demolished, these are great opportunities to do non-destructive drills. We had a house like this. In this one, I was teaching how they need to prop open the garage door. How many firefighter fatalities have we had with crews going to fight a house fire, going through the garage door, have the mechanism fail, and have the door come back down on the hose line? There's been at least 2 line-of-duty deaths just from that. But how many have seen video of that? Because there's a few of them out there. So teach them how to secure it. Here they're using a baby ladder. Here he's tying it with a webbing so it doesn't kick out. And you're just teaching your firefighters how to use their tools. In a lot of this, what you're going to see today is what geometric shape. You're going to see that throughout this drill. You watch. Here he's using a Halligan, just wedging it in the side of the track. I don't recommend using forcible entry tools as wedges, but if all the forcible entry is done, it serves the purpose. The point is the guy's thinking, and that's what I'm looking for. You're teaching your people how to think. We've seen this drill illustrated in the books, but how many people have actually tried it, where they're using the Halligan to bust out a window? If you have any of these buildings that are going to be demolished, see if you can get permission to bust out the windows. If the windows are already broken out because of vandalism, go ahead and try it anyway with the open window. It's a lot harder than it looks. But I'm telling you, these guys will be out here for 2 hours easy because they're going to try different ways. They're going to try and outdo each other, and they're going to turn it into a competition. They start betting pops, Slurpees, whatever it is. But the point is that they're out there working on it. So there he goes, and he's swinging it. He's measuring it. He's pulling it up. And sometimes they break the glass, and sometimes they don't. You'll notice these crossbars here. They'll try it, and it hits the bar. So it's not always easy. It seems like it's an easy task, but go ahead and try it because it's one of the fun drills for sure. And then they're going to come up with different ways. Then the firefighter says, well, what happens if here's the triangle again, let's tie it on two ends, and then they experimented with that. They came to the conclusion that it was too long to tie it, and it wasn't working. But the point is that they're experimenting, and that's what I want them to do. Okay? Standpipe and sprinkler connections. You see these everywhere. It's a fire code violation if they don't have those frangible discs. Usually on the inspections, like here, people put some rocks in there or paper cups and all kinds of garbage. It's a violation. You write them up. They're supposed to clean it out and put a cap on it. But I tell my firefighters, that's fine. But if you get this call tonight at 2 a.m, all of a sudden that female swivel that's frozen, whose problem is it now? It's your problem. So I make them WD-40 it right there on the job. And they're preparing their workspace for tonight. We don't leave it for the owners to do it on their own time. So look at this one here. This is a real one in one of our districts. How many people think that's going to swivel pretty freely? Right? Okay, so let's say that's the one you have to take. How many people have had that drill? The firefighter, especially the young guy, shows up and he can't get the female to swivel. What's the solution? Very good. Double male, double female. All right, so do it. And what happens if the rig's down the block? How do you do it then? You could either run to the rig and wear yourself out, or what? You could twist the hose. Get them to twist the hose. Figure out how many counts it takes, and then they can twist it back. It's a quick fix. Okay, but it works. This is using 2.5 hose for other things than just putting out fires. Here we're using it to establish a collapse zone. One firefighter anchors it, and you lay it out. If you establish a collapse zone with tape, a lot of times the wind's blowing, there's nothing to tie it to. But how do you really establish a collapse zone? What is a collapse zone anyway in the book? What's the answer? 1.5 times the building of the height of the building. But how do you, as an incident commander, how do you mark that out so it's safe? You can establish it and say you have it established, but it's anybody's guess. But you have plenty of hose on the fire ground. You have thousands and thousands of feet. Go ahead and lay a line, a demarcation line. Now it's very clear. You can have the ambulance crew or even some of the support units to lay that out. But then it's clearly marked. You have control of that collapse zone, and it's clear. It's not left open to interpretation. So just a little tip there. You can also use 2.5 hose to set up traffic lanes for mass decon, or if you have to do crowd control, decontamination for a MCI or something like that. Here we're making some lanes. The good way to practice this is most schools have to have a fire drill every month, and so we did it with the schools. And we were just practicing with fire hose. You can lay hose and say all the males on this side, all the females on this side. If they're going to go into tents or decon tents to protect the dignity and things of those sorts, if they have to disrobe for decon, you can funnel them, and it's just a way of using hose for crowd control. Just a simple drill, and that's pretty fun. Coupling rodeos. This is just for the young firefighters to get their hands on all the couplings, and it turns into a competition. It has no practical value. You're not going to set up a hydrant like this, but they're using the Siamese, they're using the Ys, and how fast can you hook everything up to these fire department connections? Ready, go. And they start. Now, guarantee you, they're going to be out there for an hour and a half because they're going to start beating the times, and it turns into a big competition. But it's just a quick idea of making coupling rodeos and getting your guys out there. Here's another coupling rodeo. Here's a hydrant right here. This is in the back of the fire station. I used 2.5 sections. We have 100-foot sections. I put a male and a female here. I put the soft suction there and another soft suction there. they have to use the Siamese and the Y. How many company officers have had their firefighters confuse the Siamese and the Y? Raise your hand. There's a few. So a drill like this, they only have to make that mistake one time. And if they make that mistake, I have them charge it. Because once they do that, they'll never get it wrong again. But they have to set it up, and then it's a ready go. And they have to use all the couplings, and it's just a coupling rodeo. They have to insert the Siamese and the Y. Once he makes all the connections, you charge the line and take all the kinks out. Teach him at this point, no kinks, no kinks. Why is it important? Because kinks reduce flow, fire flow. That's important for them to learn. They become sloppy if you don't correct kinks, and they'll do it on the fire ground. If you drill and no kinks is like a cardinal rule, then you won't see them on the fire ground. Anyway, just a little fun coupling drill. Okay, you're going to see some drill locations. Here's what I look for. The whole city is my drill court. That's how I call it. Anytime there's a vacant building or a mall or an open space, I find out who the owner is, and I get permission to do non-destructive drills. They're more than happy to let us do this. You can put aerials up here. You can practice simulations on the loading docks. You can do large area search. How many people have these in their area where they're going to put a new community? These are great because you can go with your second-in engine company. They have hydrants there, and you can practice forward and reverse lays. You can pretend that there's a cul-de-sac where the engine can only get here, but you have to advance hose here. So you create these scenarios, but you're not causing any traffic problems. You're not bottling up anything. Nobody's there. You don't have to worry about interfering or do it on a Sunday when the workers aren't there. And you got a whole playground. Large ramps. If you had to fight a fire up here, can you get an engine up this ramp? No way. It'll bottom out. So practice some scenarios where you have to get hose up a ramp like this. Here's that building I was talking about. It's burned down to the ground now, and it was on this fire. But I've actually used this to ladder, go up to the roof, put aerials up there, use ground ladders. This is the Bravo side. This is a dead end here, and there's a hydrant. So we could take hose lines and lay charge lines and spray the wall. And you can do all kinds of things with these buildings. Don't go in them. You don't have to worry about it because they're dangerous. Again, you're keeping it safe, but you're doing all the setup. A lot of the mistakes happen in the initial setup of the incident. So look for these places and drill on them. We put ladders here, we aerialed here, we were talking about walls, and then, because it will burn down, and it did. So, okay, here's a Stokes lid arrays using 35 ground ladders. This is a rescue drill. Let's say we have to get a firefighter off a roof, or you have to get a workman off a roof. How do you get them off when there's no aerial access here? So just practice ways on putting your ladder up and using your tools. Is there any right or wrong way? There's just different techniques, that's all. So here we have the Stokes at the bottom of the ladder. They're getting it rigged up. Firefighter goes up to the top, runs the rope back between the first and second rung, and drops it down. And then they just practice hoisting. Now, if you actually had a real patient in there, he's taking it on the roof. Of course, there'll be more people now, but if you have a patient, you want to try and get that angle a little lower, or you might have to use a 35-foot or a 40-foot ladder so you can get a lower angle. But they're practicing just the techniques. But it's fun. It's better than just throwing a ladder up. Oh, excuse me. And then they bring it down. Now, this one is really a fun drill. Same type of variation. We have this 35-foot ladder going to the top of this building here. This also can work to get a firefighter out of a window. It's kind of a variation, or it addresses the Denver drill situation. This could be a window right here. You have to be creative. But you're taking a ladder up to an access point. You take two firefighters and you tie two roof ropes or rescue ropes to the tips. Secure them to the top rung. The ladder is butted against the building, or it's butted to where it won't get kicked out. And you bring it in. Once the firefighters climb the angle, then you bring the butt in, so you're making a straight ladder fire escape. Now you're going to flag this rung that comes to the roof line so you don't forget it. Just throw something there to flag it. And then what you're doing is you're going to create a drawbridge that connect the tag line. And they're lowering the ladder now. Just a drawbridge. Now the ladder's on the ground. Now they're tying the stokes, head of the stokes right here. He's lashing it to the rung that was flagged. And now the guys are hoisting with the ropes, they're hoisting the ladder tip back up, and they're bringing the stokes to the roof. Or if that was a window, it would come right into the window. Now the stokes stays tied to the ladder. You're going to have to bring the firefighter or the victim and put them into the stokes. Of course, you're going to have more people up there, but you're just practicing the mechanics. Once it's weighted, and do not weight it with a firefighter, but you can weight it with weighted materials, sandbags, rescue dummy, or equipment. Firefighter foots it, and now they're going to lower it. Now, when this is weighted, the foot section is just going to go right against the rungs. And you just lower it to the ground. Very slick evolution. This is a fast way to get somebody off the roof. So practice it. It's in one of the old rescue books. It's out of an old ISTA manual, but it hasn't been around. But the equipment's good. Your webbing is good. It's all rated. There's no reason why this shouldn't happen. But it's a lot harder to pull somebody down a ground ladder. And if you don't have aerial access to that side, that is a very good alternative. Here's some driver tips when you're just out driving around. You can teach your drivers, never park in front of the grocery store. The trucks go to the grocery store every shift. How many people park in front of the grocery store because they want their apparatus to be close in case there's a run? Anybody? I know there's guys that do that. We used to do that. But I started paying attention to what was going on here. You got all these cars coming here, and people were blocking, and you're creating a serious hazard. Now, I had a firefighter stand right here, because this is not staged. But you can see the accident waiting to happen, right? I said, make sure they do not go when there's cars there. Now, this one we did stage with the family, but this car is not staged. But you can see it coming, and you can see the accident. So when that happens, who's going to get blamed? You are. Trust me, you will. In King County, we had this situation at a crosswalk with one of the county dump trucks. It was blocking. It was stopped, parked legally, but somebody came out. They got hit by a car. This car here said that the truck was blocking his view, and the lawsuit, they ended up settling with the county, and it wasn't even the county's fault. But they're going to go for deep pockets. So avoid your liability. Make sure you guys park at the end of the parking lot. Let them walk. If you get a run, they can run back, but it's not worth the exposure. So, you can make a drill out of it, and then it becomes a teaching point, and then they'll never do it. Teach your acting officers when they're riding shotgun. Don't give any signals to any cars that are coming. He's going to flag this guy on. You don't know what the driver's doing. The driver could be looking left, and he's going, go ahead, and you flag him right into the truck. This is an actual accident. This one's staged, and this one's real. And that's exactly what happened. The officer flagged the guy, the driver didn't see it, and they collided. So you're doing this drill based on an incident. So there you go. Nothing too serious, but they made contact. Roll-up doors in and out. Just teaching points. If you get these roll-up doors on vacant buildings that are going to be torn down, you make the teepee cut or whatever cut you decide to make. Do you lay the door leaf towards you, or do you lay it into the building? What's the textbook answer on that? There is none. Usually they'll pull it out. But now you've created a serious tripping hazard. You have the opportunity for the hose to get caught or cut. And so we just experimented, and we think it's better if you push it in. A lot easier. So just little teaching points on the drill. Pike pole firefighter drag. If you go around on the floor, you're going to see all these systems of firefighter rescue drags. I've found, for me, try this, one of the best things to do is just use a pike pole and hook the top of the SCBA and pull that firefighter like a wagon. There's something with this strong pole that transfers all the weight that allows you to carry that firefighter with one hand and run with that firefighter on carpet, on flooring, but try it. It's a quick grab, hook, and go. You can even pull the firefighter in a crawling position, but you're able to use all your weight because it's transferred to the pole. With straps, it's a lot harder to do, but just try this. You just hook the top of the SCBA and go. If you have a partner, have them put a webbing underneath their knees. You don't have to tie it. You're just bringing it around and holding it like this. There's no knot. And that makes it go even faster because there's less friction, and the only part that's dragging is just the torso of the firefighter. But you can really haul using this. Just give it a shot. That's just using the tools that you have. Here you're using a baby ladder as a sled. The baby ladder is something that once the driver gets set up, they should take it off the rig and put it on the front porch. Sooner or later, you're going to need that. But this is a great way, especially when you have limited staffing. If somebody goes down for a variety of reasons. What's the number one reason firefighters die in line of duty deaths? What's the 50%? Heart attack. So if he's down and you got a big bubba there, and these guys are fit, or maybe not quite so fit, just throw them on a ladder, and they can make a lot of headway just putting this heavy-duty firefighter on a ladder. It's even better with a roof ladder because you have more room. There's more weight that is distributed between the roof ladder. Now, this firefighter here is like 6'2", and you got two guys here carrying him with little or no effort. This can also be part of your rapid intervention technique. What I like about this versus a sked or a Stokes is that if you come across an obstacle, two firefighters can get this firefighter over a 4.5-foot obstacle simply by putting the tip on the obstacle. He's holding on for safety, but really there's so much friction with all the gear, he's not going anywhere. He's not sliding. No, he can just stay there. He won't fall. Yeah. But test it. Again, you want to be safe. Firefighter in the back brings them up. They slide it. They spin it. Comes around the other side. And now you got this firefighter over a wall, obstacle, and they're ready to go. Even through a window. But practice that. It's a really cool one. So we practiced that, and then we actually found a house that was being destroyed, and they had a basement window like this. Aha! The drill court. The city is my drill court, like I always say. So we got in here. We got permission to go in. Here's the basement. I put my heaviest firefighter, who's with all this gear on. He's probably 375. He's a tank. I lay him on the ground. I throw some stuff on him. It's not heavy, but I got some galvanized steel there. And so he is a downed firefighter in a basement. One firefighter shoots a roof ladder down into the basement window. Two guys go down the stairs because there's no way we're bringing them out the stairs. No way. The stairs were so rickety, there's no room for three guys, and plus who knows if they would have even held. The hardest part was getting them onto the ladder, but they rolled him onto the ladder. Once he's there, the friction on this guy is enough just to leave him there. You have to make account for the air bottle. Don't get the air bottle down into the rungs. So we put him sideways. Then the guys lifted the butt. They lifted the butt of the ladder, and he came right out. We got this guy out in like 3 minutes. Is that incredible or what? 3 guys. I took pictures. So those 3 guys got Dino out in like 3 minutes. It's a fast evolution. So give that one a try. It's just using the ground ladders, using your tools, transferring the weight, and letting your tools work for you. That is a slick evolution. And he just came right out that window. So that's part of our, if we get a rapid intervention situation, I am looking for an opportunity to use the roof ladder wherever I can insert it, because I know it's a fast evolution. Teaching your firefighters how to do the reduced profile crab position. This is the same building. If they have to get to a window, call for help, and they have to get below the window because of the heat, teach them the crab position. This is where they're holding on with 1 foot here and 1 hand and leaning off to the side. Now, if you notice, here's the ground, so again, he's safe. He's not going to fall. Don't do it on the 3rd story and say, here's a place where we can do the crab evolution. No, do it on the 1st floor. Same effect. If they can do it there and you build their confidence here where they won't get hurt, if they have to do it at a higher elevation, they'll be ready to go. But teach them how to do that. Just a drill. We were just out for the day and we found this house that was going to be torn down, so we just kind of played on it. Simple drills, but they're not in the books. Rescue from below. A lot of places, especially on the waterfront, you don't have aerial access, or you may not even have ladder access on the Bravo, Charlie, or Delta side. So how are you going to make rescues from the floor above if you have a situation? Well, you have to go from the floor below. This is out of a Harold Richmond book. So I remembered this, and we did it. Now, this is a tower at a fire station. Again, this is the 1st floor window. I kind of shot up so it would look higher, but you're being safe. But you're teaching the firefighter how to make an exterior fire escape, or the old Pompier ladder evolution, which we no longer use. Now, the hooks are tested and rated for how many pounds? 500. But you should know that. So know the ladder rating so that they'll trust their equipment. All right? So he hooks it up on top. Now he's going to use a pike pole on the inside of the tower, and he's going to tie the rung to the pike pole so it won't come out. He's got to stabilize it. So there you see, that ladder is like glued to the side of that tower. It's suspended by the hooks, and this is going to keep it right there from moving around. Very tight. And then make the firefighter climb it. I tried to find some video. I got to look, and I ran out of time, but there's a lot of video footage out there where firefighters are working on the roof, and then the roof collapses, the fire comes, and they have to go to the aerial ladder. They're jumping on, and there's flames all around them. They're almost engulfed. And what does that aerial operator do? Nothing. They're just like shrimp on the Barbie. You have to teach your aerial operator, get that aerial away from the building once the firefighters are on it. So we did this drill based on those videos. Firefighters are going up to the roof. This aerial operator is on the Alpha Delta corner. So the firefighters are going there. That's the last time he sees them. They're up there for ventilation. Then I say, okay, all of a sudden, boom, collapse. Something went on. You see smoke, flame, and all of a sudden your firefighters are on another part of the building. What are you going to do? And you got to teach that aerial operator to maneuver the aerial as quickly as he can and get to a position somewhere else on the building. But we don't spend a lot of time having the aerial operators do that as part of our drill. They just usually put it up, you go up, you do your roof pre-fires or inspections or whatever you do, and then they put the aerial down. But teach that guy how to operate that aerial. Teach your firefighters how to climb up a parapet wall, climb over, and get on the aerial from the side of the aerial. How many people do that on a regular basis? Once they're on the aerial and secure, now you cannot retract or extend when you have firefighters on the roof, but you can certainly move to the right and lower and raise without risking any injury to the firefighters by retracting or extending the fly sections. So the drill is he moves from this wall away from the heat, because when that roof collapses, you're going to get a tremendous fireball, and a tremendous amount of radiant heat. Once those firefighters are secure, the aerial operator moves the tip of the ladder away from the building and drops it down below the roof line to prevent those firefighters from absorbing the heat. Once they're in that position, then they can get down. But look at the video. You'll see it on YouTube. When this happens, a lot of aerial operators have the opportunity to do that, but they don't do that. It needs to be taught. Here I'm having them come to the Alpha Bravo corner, all the way on the other side of this large commercial building. So now he's moving the aerial up, around the tip. That's the Alpha Delta corner. Now he's coming right down on the A side. Firefighters get on. Once they're secure, then he lowers it below the roof line. And you're buying them time. Once the ladder is at a low angle, then the firefighters can rest. Perhaps they're injured. Perhaps they're burned. They're certainly shook up. But teach that evolution so that your aerial operators can help protect your guys. That's not in the books. Bridging with ground ladders. Saw these old pictures. Another picture from the Harold Richmond book, first edition. So I actually came up with this evolution on an actual call. What happened was, in one of the waterways in Seattle, a barge had broken loose with somebody on it, and we had to go get them. It wasn't far off shore, but it was enough where we couldn't actually go into the water. So I figured, well, if we could just bridge it, but how do I get the ladder to get over there? And after a while, we just figured it out. So you use, here we're using a 28, but you can do it with a 35. Try it with a 25 or a 28. You need 2 ropes, a roof ladder, and an extension ladder. Now you tie off the tips of the extension ladder with 2 different ropes. And then you raise it to the top position. Then you bring the butt end of the roof ladder and you lash the 2 bottom rungs together. So you're making an L. Once you're in that position, you raise the extension ladder. You have 2 firefighters stabilizing it, and you raise it to the maximum, and then you tie off the 2 ropes to the hook end of the roof ladder, and then the ropes go out. And then that firefighter tends it. What have we created? Triangle. We created a drawbridge. All the weight now is focused right here on this pivot point. And it's being held by these 2 ropes. And as the extension ladder goes to a forward position, all the weight is transferred over to the roof ladder. And he's not even wrestling with it. It's just such an amazing transfer of weight that he can manage that with 2 hands by himself. And he simply lowers the ladder into position. Boom, and it's down. So now you created your bridge. Again, safety, we did it on the ground so nobody falls. But if you can do it in this situation, if you had a bridge, an alley, or something, you could do it. There's other ways of bridging. This is just one way. And then you raise it. Now look, they're just footing it. One firefighter, he's not straining, but the weight is transferred through this long axis here that we're able to raise very smoothly and very easy an extended 28-foot ladder, which would be almost an impossible task. And then you bring it right back up to the position. Now, we're going to do some hose. You look at some stairwells. This stairwell here is in an old hotel in downtown Seattle. If you look at these stairs where the standpipe is, they're really steep and not a lot of landing there for anything. But this is the main riser with the standpipe. And look at the door. The door actually opens up over the stairs. There's not a lot of room here. And yet this is a large hotel, Type 3 construction, probably built in the early 1900s. It's an 8-story, 9-story apartment building with quite a few people in it. And this is the main firefighting stairwell. So we actually had an incident here. And, of course, what do you think was the challenging What was the challenging part of this evolution? The hose. Spaghetti everywhere. I got my foot there to see how, you can see how narrow the landing was and how narrow the steps are. But depending on what type of city you live in, go and try and find these places. If you find places like this, go drill on them. Actually go and take your crews there. Don't eyeball it. Don't talk it. Go do it. So how do we keep our hose in some sort of order when you have a tight space like that? And coiling hose is one thing that we do in Seattle quite a bit. So the way the coil works, and again, this will all be available later on, but this is just a straight shoulder load, right? 100 feet of hose, starting with the nozzle. The way you do this is you pull the first flake towards you. This flake comes towards you, and then you alternate. One towards you, and one goes in your hand. One towards you, and the next one in your hand. Towards you, this flake's going to go on top. All the way till you get to the end. Now you created a donut. So you take your hand and you step through the loop and you lay it down. Now you're ready to go. When you charge this line, the driver has to give it a little bit of a bump, maybe like 200 psi. All that hose is going to charge into a nice coil with no kinks. But you need the pressure to do that. Once it's charged, the driver can back down to the required psi. But I'm going to show you how it just charges up. Boom. Take some practice, but you can do it. It's very simple. And if you guys get good at this, it's a very quick evolution. Look at this sidewalk here. Just a couple. We got 200 feet of hose right here. Now you can advance the hose. He's ready to advance. Now watch how the hose just plays off the top. I'm going to do it real quick. He's going to walk all the way down the block. See how the hose plays out? Okay, so this was the demonstration in the back of the fire station so that we could learn the technique. Right after that, we went and did it in a stairwell. We try and find a stairwell that's open so that if there's any water that gets charged, it'll just go out into the street. You don't want to. You have to pick the right building, but some of these are just exterior stairwells where there's no damage to the interior of the building. So we do the evolution. Here's our landing. First one towards you. Second one in your hand. Boom, 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 all the way. He steps through it, lays it down. It charges, and now we're ready to advance our hose. Very neat, no spaghetti. And it comes right up. He takes the line up to the landing above, and now he's going to make entry into the fire floor, and that's that evolution. How many wedges does it take for you to do an evolution like this? When you have a apartment complex, have you ever counted how many wedges you need as a first-in company? How many do you think, how many wedges do you need if you have fire on the 4th floor? So you're going to take a standpipe and you're first in. Anybody? At least 4 to 5 wedges. So do your crews have at least 4 to 5 wedges between them? Does that lead firefighter have 4 or 5 wedges? Some firefighters don't even have wedges. But this is an important evolution. So let's look at it. And again, don't talk it out, actually run it through. Find a place, officer comes into the lobby, verifies the alarm location. The quickest way to access the stairwell, which is usually on the Bravo or the Delta side of the building, that's where the standpipe connection is, that's where the stairwell is, and that's where the crews need to come in, is have, rather than do forcible entry, just have your firefighter come into the lobby and head down the 1st floor hallway and open the door. That is the fastest, quickest way to do it. So there's wedge number 1. You need to wedge down here, though, so it doesn't fall. Wedge number 1. This is the access to the outside. Crews are coming in now. Firefighter's going to connect to the standpipe on the floor below, or maybe 2 floors below, depending if you have to use up your hose, but certainly we'll just say with the floor below the fire. This is the fire floor. Wedge number 2. What happens if there's a fire door in the middle of the hallway? Wedge number 3, and maybe you need to wedge the actual room, so 4, just depending, but 3 to 4. Now, my firefighter, one of my guys, Reyes, he's always looking for stuff to do. He started buying these clips, and he's going, "Hey, Cap, look at these new clips. They work way quicker than wedges." I said, "Why would you want those things hanging on you, Jerome? They're cheap, they're light. You buy them at Home Depot, and it's fast. I bet you I can wedge faster than you can, and they don't fall out." So I didn't dampen his enthusiasm, and I let him try it out, but they work pretty good. So he just goes here, and he wedges the door, and it's done. This is great when you're doing ventilation. Maybe you don't want the door open, but you want it accessible, and you can wedge it like this, or you can wedge it on the hinge side, and it'll hold it open. But these work actually pretty good. If you have to use ventilation, positive pressure ventilation to keep doors closed or open, this is a great little tool here. You can also use it to indicate how far you got down a hallway in a search. We're supposed to use tape. Well, who's ever tried to tape a door in a fire? Yeah, with gloves on. I mean, that's in the books, and I have yet to get it to work right. It doesn't work. But he just puts the clip on the doorknob and said, "We got as far as the doorknob with the clip. Start there." That's a great flag for search and rescue, and it works on a variety of doors. So there's a little thing there. Extended lays. A lot of people will just eyeball these. Go ahead and lay them. If you have a 300-foot hallway, there's no sprinklers in this, and you only make it to here, you should know these hallways if they're in your district. What happens if you run out of hose? Now you got to go back and insert another section of hose. Well, what happens if this hallway is smoked up? Look at all the time delay that they're doing. They have to bring up another 200 feet. They don't need 200 feet. They only need 100. So they got to break it. And then they have to connect it. Is this really going to happen in a fire situation in the smoky hallway? This is a big time waster. So when you find these long lays in your building, in your district, go out there and actually practice on them. Anyway, the secret to these long lays is to get the Y load, which is a predetermined amount of hose, get it to a forward position. I'm going to come back to this. Get it to a forward position, but the trick to long lays is when you do your standpipe connection, take your first 100 feet of 2.5 and try and get that Y up to a forward position. If you can advance that Y, then that's going to buy you that extra 100 feet. And then you can bring your bundled hose, and you should be able to make those long lays. But we tend to work backwards. And actually go out and practice those, because everybody has those long lays. Get that Y into a forward position. Here's another drill, just getting firefighters to play with SCBA. SCBA drills are kind of boring. Same old thing, right? But there could be some situations in a rig, rapid intervention situation, or maybe an earthquake, building collapse, where you have to get a bottle down to somebody. Maybe there's only access to get them a bottle until we can get them help. So lower a bottle down to a firefighter and see if he could change out his bottle while he's holding his breath. Is that a realistic situation? Maybe yes, maybe no. If they're good enough, yeah, if you're in a smoky environment and you run out of air, you're going to be sucking smoke. That is not fun. You're going to try and hold your breath as much as you can. But this is a fun drill. And they'll start practicing it. These guys were here for like 2 hours trying to all the different variations. In this situation, we lower him a bottle. He still has air. He's still connected on air. He's got his bottle. He's taking the pack off his back. He's still connected to air. He's laying it down, and he's getting it all set up. He's loosening the cylinder strap, and he's ready to go. He's taking his last breath, and then, boom, he shuts off the main. He's holding his breath. He's going to have to bleed it, and then he quickly switches it out. The hardest part of this drill is threading the new bottle back on. But once you do it, you could breathe. But it's a fun drill. Now, the only problem with this drill is make sure they don't get so aggressive that they damage the threads. Again, you don't want to damage the equipment, but this is kind of a different situation. And if you can get somebody a bottle of air, look at some of the rig evolutions that are out there of firefighters trapped. Air is the number one thing they need. Maybe all we can do is get them a bottle sometime. If they have the ability to change it out, have them try that. They're going to do it with their hands first because you just have to. And then when they get good at it, have them start doing it with their gloves on. But it turns into a competition. They start betting ice cream, and you got yourself a 2-hour SCBA drill. You can do it also with the RIT pack. Yes, you can. So these are just variations of this drill. Okay? Here's a portable light drill. Salvage and overhaul is sometimes some of the things that we need to do. Light up the situation. Why do we have to work in the dark when the emergency is over? Most times they'll bring the lights, they'll just lay them down on the ground. Well, get them up off the ground. Use nails, something as simple as nails, and light up the situation. But here, again, here's our triangle. We're using a baby ladder with a pike pole, and we're creating a tripod. And all we're doing is lashing the top, attaching the pike pole to it. We created a tripod, and now you can hang lights. They're off the ground. You can move it. It can be in water, and it's a light drill. We don't do that very often, but then after you do that, do it at night in a building, because that's when it's going to happen. If we need lights, there's no electricity in there. So we did this drill again in that same vacant building at night. Now this one is something that I figured out, and this is separating the baby ladder, or you can use a roof ladder, and we're going to wedge this ladder against the wall. I can wedge it right here on this wall. Now if you look at how I established the pike poles, I got 2 pike poles supporting the bottom beam of this ladder and one up on top. So the one on top is pushing the ladder into the wall, and the one on the bottom is keeping it from falling. Top, bottom, bottom. But that ladder is wedged up against the wall. Now we've got to keep these from kicking out. You can put a chair there or something to keep that D handle from kicking out. You can put a nail right there. We just went through the wall and tied it off. But what did we create again? We created a triangle. And now you can hang all the lights. You could have done chin-ups on this thing. Just with that configuration right there. The triangle appears so much in our line of work, but that is going to wedge that ladder right to the wall. We hung all our lights, and it didn't move at all. Also, use the aerial lights. We have these big lights at the end of our aerial, and a lot of time it just stays bedded. But practice lighting up the scene. If you get any of these vacant buildings, practice using your aerial to light it up. Another driver drill for trucks is aerial target practice using Stokes. I want you to put it right here. I want you to put it right here, here, here. And just go out there and practice landing the Stokes litter. Here I wanted to land it on this fence, and he nailed it. And they'll be out there for a few hours just practicing where are we going to drop this Stokes. And again, it turns into a competition. Here we actually got a rescue dummy and did it with a weighted Stokes just to see the difference and have my people package the patient. How many people have these buildings in their district? This is in Boston, but we have quite a few in Seattle. Take the opportunity here and practice, target practice with your aerial truck. Here I'm using the trusses of the bridge, and I'm having the aerial come around, and I'm going to say, I want you to put the aerial through that space, that space, that space, and they're just practicing. They're not damaging the bridge. They're getting a practice for the depth of field, and they're just hitting triangles. But it's a driver drill for the trucks. And then have your firefighters climb it. They should be climbing that aerial often just to get used to the heights. So there's aerial target practice. Same thing here. Check and see if you had to use this waterway, if you were going to use this as a defensive attack, how far you can get it in there, and practice your driver using that aerial like he's going to deploy the master stream. On these same type of buildings, you can also practice with your younger firefighters sounding on the rafters so that they can figure out where they're at. The driver can coach them. Nope, you're a little off. You need to go to the right. And they should practice listening to the sounds. But when you have these buildings, take advantage of sounding opportunities. He's right on that one. This is a young rookie, so we're teaching them how to sound. Have them sound using the straight end of a pike pole, which is a lot different than the D handle, which is a lot different than the axe. So practice those techniques. And at the same time, take a look at the roofing. You have a cross-section of what you're going to be charged with ventilating. So take these opportunities to take your people up there and see how these roofs are put together, that we have to peel back this insulation. There's about 2 inches of that. And our saw is just going to get buried right into that. If we can make an access and cut it back so we can get right to the metal, that's going to be a lot more effective in a ventilation. But you have to use these opportunities to practice. Now, these next set of drills are going to be really fun. If you look at high parapet walls in your district, you're going to have some of these buildings, and they have a high parapet wall. If you have to go and ventilate, and part of your evolution is not getting your people to take up a roof ladder, they're going to have to go back down and get it. If you know that these buildings exist, take the roof ladder with you with the initial firefighter, because that is quite a drop, right? These parapets are everywhere, and truck companies need to know where they're at. So, again, this is a drill. It's a combination of drills. We're teaching them how to sound. And sometimes you need 2 roof ladders. Now, if they have to go to a situation where, see, we got the 2 roof ladders here. If they get a situation where there's a roof collapse and they have to get to that wall and they only have 1 roof ladder, they lose their ladder, they're in a tight situation, wouldn't you say? How are you going to get on that wall when you lost your ladder? Well, we're going to show you, because there are some techniques. But before we do that, this is that same drill. This is called a chalk saw. The guys made it using PVC pipe, and it's the same anatomic position of the chainsaw, puts the body in the same position that they would be cutting, and they're practicing their inspection cuts using chalk, and the officer is able to demonstrate how they would normally do the cut. So these are called chalk saws. You don't need the saw, you can just use chalk, but this is a good drill to go up there and mark it up. Okay, so look at that parapet wall again. If for some reason you're hanging onto that parapet wall, how long can you hang? I had this firefighter here who's in good shape. He probably hung there almost 4 or 5 minutes, I think. And I said, okay, but in real life, you're going to be hanging like this with all your gear on. That cut his time down substantially. So then the fat captain tried it. That's me right there. I know this is a good drill. I know if I get in this situation where I have to be suspended, for me, I'm going to last 5 seconds. What can I do in those 5 seconds? Pray, but one more thing. Huh? I could plan where I'm going to fall. I know I'm falling. So it just gives me enough time to at least try and figure it out. So we start doing this, and they start competing, and they start timing each other. So try the hangman, and they'll be out there for an hour easy trying to outdo each other because of that situation. So here's our parapet wall again. I call this the wall. If you have a berm wall here, let's look at some ways that we can try and get over this wall by ourselves or with the truck crew. This could be a basement or it could be the parapet wall. Now this guy here, Stonich and Boer, they actually climbed Mount Everest. These guys are pretty awesome guys, and they thought they could just take a running jump and do it. But neither one of them were able to do that. And these guys are pretty fit. So what did we do? Well, the first thing you can do is just do the boost. Practice doing the boost to get over the wall or the parapet wall. And that'll work, and then this guy has to help him over. If you have a tool, you can use it as a stepping stool. Again, there's the triangle, and that'll work. Now look at this. He's using the Halligan tool as a stepping tool, and we figured out that if you use a D-handle pike pole and you put the pike and the hook right at the tip, that's going to dig in and create friction. It's a perfect place for your hand to grab onto, and the D-handle acts as a stirrup. Unfortunately, this was a short D-handle. I didn't want him to tear his gear up, so I had one of the other guys give him a hand. But once he got set, he was able to do it. And then the pike pole fell off. So we tried it with a longer D-handle. Different firefighter. Now he wants to try it. Oh, I want to try that. So now he's doing it, and that worked up pretty good. Then we said, well, what happens if it's a basement and we have some charged hose? Let's drop a loop of hose down into the basement and create a sling. So that worked. Problem is when he starts climbing up, his foot is sliding down. So they figured out how they can kind of shuffle up. But these guys are going to figure that part out on their own. All you're doing is providing them just a little bit of access, and they're going to start going for it. And that's the best way to do it. They figured if they straddled it up, and as they're boosting up, they're pulling up the slack on the hose, it'll get them right up there. And then Stonich has to do it, and there they go. That's what it looks like on the backside. They're just dropping a loop of a charged line over the parapet or into the basement. Then they said, well, let's do it with an uncharged line. Okay, let's try it. So now they're trying it with uncharged hose. And that worked. Then they said, well, let's do a fire pole. Let's slide down. If we had to go down, let's say we had to go down. All right, let's try it. Again, they're not going to get hurt on this wall, so they're not going out of the second floor window. But they're sliding it. Then Boer says, well, I'm going to climb it. But that didn't work. All right, so then Don goes, well, let's use two-size pike poles. If you can create a ladder, let's try that. So he's going right, left, and that works. And then he said, maybe I could tie a strap to this. Now, these guys are making this up as it goes. So have at it, guys. Now he realized he got the strap on the wrong one. All right, but trial and error. I put it in here so you can see they're trying it. And he says, all right, I'm going to switch it to the other side. So he goes right, left, right, and it worked. There you go. Does this happen? Absolutely. These pictures are from a fire. The first floor just went right in with the TGI beams. Fire was in the basement, and this thing collapsed right when the firefighters were there, and 2 firefighters were down the hole. The floor just gave way. So it's a realistic drill. Somebody sent me these pictures. They thought of the same thing. The hose is down there. How can we use the hose to get these firefighters up? And so they actually cut a hole, and they're trying it in an acquired structure, but they're doing the same thing. And they're using the haulers here. But just a variation of the same thing. Again, firefighters are down there to prevent injury, but they're learning the technique. How do you get a firefighter out of a hole using hose? EMS flat raise. We go on this call a lot. Have an obese person. They need help getting up. She's pretty big, but she volunteered for this. I've seen firefighters time and time again try and lift them up by the arms. Have you ever tried pulling somebody up by their arms when they weigh 450 pounds, you're going to pull the arms right out of their socket. So try this. Get a backboard. Let them crawl on. This is provided that they're not hurt. Get a something underneath so you can get your fingertips underneath. And it's just a flat raise. Firefighter's foot in the bottom just like a ladder. And up she goes. Nobody gets hurt, no back injuries. It's easier for the patient. Again, the drawbridge. This works pretty slick. So how many people have been on this call? How many people have used this? A couple people. Well, try it next time. If you know it's somebody like that, just have your crew bring in a backboard and try it out. Laddering for ship fires. I'm going to go really fast here because I want to get to a few more, and then we'll stop and take some questions. How many people have marinas or waterways in their district? Okay, well, when we have ship fires, we've had firefighters go into the water, or if they fall off for whatever reason, and the ladders on the piers are not always where you want them. So we need to create our own. If you're on a truck company or a rescue company, you want to create a survivable area around that boat or ship, and so figure out a way to create ladders. If the guys go in, you want them to be able to climb out of the water. So we have our extension 35s. We extend them on the ground and we lash them together. We tie our ropes to the butt end. Remember, you have to pull these out, but let them figure it out. Basically, you're just having a retrieving system, lowering it over the edge. There's the ladder right here. And you're making a ladder escape on the side of a pier. You're using a roof anchor here to hook it. That's tied to a rung. And then you secure the lines, and you've created an emergency ladder on the side of a pier. Now, this firefighter here, Tom Erickson, who's now retired, is the only firefighter that has fallen through 2 piers in his career, both at marinas. He went through the marina decking twice on 2 separate incidents. Both times, he could not get out of the water because there was no ladder there. He ended up, hand by hand, ferrying his way towards the shallow end so that he can get out. But nobody thought about giving him a ladder. He fought a fire on a boat and went into the water twice. It gets pretty smoky on those piers, and there's not a lot of room. So just use a roof ladder and just tie it to a cleat. But put the ladders where you need them. Very simple evolution. You can even do it with a baby ladder. Lash it together in the extended position and tie it to a cleat. But there's lots of ladders on the engines, and that is the drill here. I want to move to some other ones before we run out of time. Hold on here. How many people have these in their district? Well, in 1999, Lake Hamilton, Hot Springs, 13 people died. This duct sank in 30 seconds. They just had one in July of 2010 in Philadelphia. It capsized and sank, and 2 drowned. 37 people went into the water, 2 of the crew, 35 passengers. Well, Seattle, we have a whole fleet of these things, and they're in my district. So what am I going to do? We're going on the call. They're going to call the rescue boats and this and that. But what are we going to do in the meantime as a truck company? So practice throwing the life ring. It's just a drill. You can do this you can do this in a parking lot. But as easy as it sounds, it's very difficult to do. So go out there and say, today we're going to throw the life ring. And again, it turns into a competition. They start messing up. Everybody's laughing. They're using this like a frisbee, or they're using the line. But let them figure out which way is the best way for them. And after a few turns, they're going to be able to nail it. So we figured, okay, well, what happens if we get one of these ducks and we have people in the water? How are we going to get these people out quickly? especially when the water's cold. In Seattle, it doesn't get very warm. So we just said, well, we got life jackets and the baby ladder. Let's attach the life jackets and make a floating ladder. Will it work? It might. We just tried it. And we figured if there were people in the water and we had a line to it, if everybody held on to the ladder, we could tow in maybe 8, 12 people. I'd like to try this summer with the Boy Scouts and maybe give it a shot. But we created a floating ladder. So it's based on a scenario. Everybody holds onto the ladder and you tow them in. Maybe they could swim to the ladder. Okay, here's some 2.5 techniques, and with that we're going to kind of wind this down. 2.5. Firefighters hate pulling this because it's hard. Well, yeah, it is hard. Here you have 2 firefighters operating it. I let them go full bore. How long do you think they're going to last? Not that long. Look at how they're leaning into it. So what I figured out is you could transfer the weight to a pike pole. You take a girth hitch or a hose knot, you put it behind the nozzle onto the hose. And then you take another girth hitch, and you run the pike pole through it. And then you put the pike pole underneath the hose. And it rests across the waist of the 2 firefighters. And then you have the firefighter at the nozzle. All the nozzle reaction is transferred right here. This firefighter in front has no nozzle reaction. He can stay there all day. Try that. If you're going to do a defensive fire, you can put out some fire here. Half the time, the firefighters get tired that they shut the nozzle down. But in this position, they're working smart, just using a pike pole, and they can operate for a long time. Here you have 2 firefighters doing the evolution, and they're doing just fine. Now we're just experimenting here, transferring the nozzle reaction to tools. Look at it, he's holding on with one hand. Now I'm not recommending saying this is how you operate it. I'm trying to show you how you can use your tools to transfer nozzle reaction. Here we're simulating higher heat conditions in a hallway, so they're on their knees. All he did was flip the pike pole from underneath the hose to on top. He just flipped it around and straddled the hose and kneeled on it, and now the pike pole is right here. It's tied back here. And this firefighter can operate in a low position with no nozzle reaction. Look at that. He's low. He's shooting up every which way. You can also knock the tip of a pike pole. This is just experimentation, but I'm trying to show you how you can transfer nozzle reaction. He's using the pike pole to wedge. Can't really see it that well. He's leaning on the pike pole that's into the ground like that. And he can operate the nozzle in this position. Now this is not how we would do it, but it's transferring the weight using your tools. This firefighter here, it's really dark on this one. He's leaning up against the pike pole. The pike pole is tied to the hose, and it's just operating fine on full stream. And then he tried it just with the friction on the cement. Same evolution here. Now you're using the pike pole outside a door so that you can operate the 2.5. Maybe you're going to do this in an alley from the building across. You can also use a ladder. Or you can also use the ladder as an unmanned stream. Now, I was experimenting with this one. This is not tied. It's only being held by the pistol grip. And I did straight stream, just to experiment. But then I tied it off. So you tie it to the rung below, and then you tie it here. And that is going to wedge that triangle. Again, there you go. Is going to wedge it so you can have an unmanned master stream. Maybe you're going to use this for a hazmat call where you need to cool a tank, or somewhere where you want some streams, but you don't need them manned, or you have reduced staffing. Oh, man, I'm getting so dry. You have reduced staffing that you have enough equipment, but maybe not enough people. But look at that stream. It's pretty good. You can use a fog stream. Then I said, all right, let's try something different now, an unmanned 2.5. So I got the baby ladder, separated it. I lashed it together here, and I used duct tape because it was kind of sloppy, but I'm just stacking the baby ladder, and then I get the roof ladder, And the hooks fit right in there. And I created another triangle. I lay the hose down and lash it here, and I lash it there. And now I have an unmanned 2.5. Start with a fog stream so you can see what's going to happen to the rigging, and then you can switch it to straight stream. That didn't move an inch. But as you can see, I created a one-man 2.5. Now, the company I was working or shot pictures, they actually got a call, so I did this by myself. They were on the call. They were going to help me with it. But I set this up by myself, so it's very easy to do, and it's just experimenting. But are we going to do this in real life? Maybe never. But it's teaching your people how to use hose. And then I elevated it just by switching it. I'm going to go to the last drill and end this. If you could start filling out your evaluations. We almost made it to the end, but not quite. This is the final drill right here. You need some duct tape, clothes hanger, 2 mouse traps, some wire, pliers. You cut your hanger there and you make a catapult from the mouse trap. Little box. Put it together. You get all the clippings, the punch, you get the hole puncher and grab all the clippings in there. And then you have your little trigger string. Then you put that in the lieutenant's locker or the captain. Load it. You need to have an anchor and a trigger point. Close it carefully. And then when the lieutenant comes to work, bam! Anyway, the business of a leader is to turn weaknesses into strengths, obstacles into stepping stones, and disasters into triumphs. I like that. And I always say, every time we go to work, it's a new day to do things right. It's just a way to get your people drilling. They're just ideas. Again, are we going to do these for reals? Maybe yes, maybe no. But look at the case studies and ask yourself, what would we have done in those situations? And practice and isolate those things and drill on them. They're going to have fun. They're going to have fun. You're teaching them how to think. You're teaching them how to problem solve. I hope you enjoyed this. Is there any comments or questions? Okay. Well, please fill out your evaluations. This will be available online. I hope it gives you some ideas. Don't be afraid to experiment. Thanks for your time. Go and enjoy the conference. Thanks for your attention. Hope you enjoyed it. Did you like it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. Thanks. Hey, thank you very much.
A couple of
Yes.
real quick questions.